Good afternoon, or should I say good evening, everybody. I am Justin Patrick, your host, and this is Lines In. We are live, powered by Battleborn Batteries and presented by Primary Tackle. Guys, thanks for tuning in with us tonight. It's just me. My good friend David and co-host is got some other stuff going on tonight, so we're riding solo. But we still got a good show. We're gonna talk some fishing tonight. We got our buddy Ashley Ault. He's going to be coming on, and Ashley Ault and I, we talk a lot on the phone and stuff, and about fishing just in general, quite often. So I've always wanted to do a fishing talk show. You can just kind of get on here and talk about what's going on currently. Just give you guys some tips and techniques. Talk about some baits. We're going to talk about three of our top baits for this time of year, and then moving forward, I guess really over the next month or so. So a lot of really great things going on right now. What's up, AJ? How you doing, man? Yeah, got some burgers on the Traeger. There you go. But man, a lot of things going on right now in the fishing world or community. The Bassmaster Elites, they just wrecked them at Santee Cooper, and the Hobie Bass Open Series. All 200 of those anglers are about to duke it out on the same water. So I'm fully expecting it to be a slugfest down there as well. I honestly wish I could be down there, but I got some other things going on this weekend. And we just wrapped up the Tennessee Bass Nation series event on Center Hill. That was a fun tournament. Congratulations to Brad and Terry Golden on doing really well. Brad won that one by I think half an inch or a quarter an inch, and his old man came in behind him right there with just about a half inch less. So they caught some really good fish. Really interesting lake, man. First time for me being on Center Hill. And, I got to say, I really envy you Nashville guys, because, man, y'all got so much good water just right there in your backyard. It would be really difficult for me to decide, where to go fish all the time. But West Tennessee Bass Yackers, our kayak club, our local club, is about to take it to Beach Lake this coming weekend. So get in on that. That's going to be I'm sure that's going to be a juicy tournament. It's probably going to be some big fish caught in that for sure. And then, man, really from this point forward, there's just an absolute just monster schedule coming up for just about really everybody. Bassmaster Kayak Series, they were just on Harris Chain. And there's a lot more coming up. Grand Lake, Eufaula. I mean, from now until June, really, or the end of June, there's just a slugfest of awesome lakes. Really good tournament. So I'm looking forward to all that. But hey, I want to take an opportunity before we bring Ashley on. I want to mention a couple of things. For those of you that may not have heard, we are doing a charity tournament for St. Jude. It's called the St. Jude Kayak Classic. It's going to be held on Enid Lake, and that is going to be May 29th. So what's pretty cool about that tournament is that it's actually running in conjunction with a very tenured tournament. I think they've been going on for 48 years. This is their 49th year. It's the St. Jude Bass Classic. They raised over $4.5 million for St. Jude, and this year we're adding a kayak tournament to run alongside with that tournament. So that's going to be a really good one. And I'm going to pull this up so you guys can see. I want to show you how you can get registered for that, so there's no confusion if you're interested. Let's see. All right, so two ways that you can enter into this tournament. And I mean, honestly, the prize packages for these are really awesome. First place is a Hobie Passport. Second place, $500, and then it goes down to $100 for fifth place. And we got some more prizes and stuff like that we will be announcing as we progress. It's a $90 entry fee. $10 big bass pot is optional, and it's going to be capped at 100 anglers. Got some really great sponsors for this event so far: Hobie, Primary Tackle, and S.Y. Wilson. And the two ways that you can register for this tournament is either through a mail-in registration or in-person registration. So if you go to our website, linesandyakfishing.com, you go right here to the St. Jude Kayak Classic tab, and then scroll down and just download this file from the St. Jude Kayak Classic registration form. It also has the mail-in address for that form. You just fill it out, send it in along with your money. I'm guessing either check or cash will be fine. And then if you need any kind of confirmation or anything like that, that your registration was received, get in touch with me, and I can put you in touch with Steve Cook, who is the owner for the Children for Life Corporation, which is the entity that is running these two tournaments for St. Jude. The other way you can register is in-person registration on the 28th, and that's going to be at the Batesville Civic Center in Batesville, Mississippi. So between 1 p.m. and 3 p.m., show up and pay your registration. If you're fishing the tournament, I'm sure you'll probably already be in the area. So if you got any questions, feel free to reach out to myself or David Best, and we'll get you pointed in the right direction. And David also has the registration forms up at his shop at Primary Tackle as well. So wanted to just put that out there real quick for anybody that may have missed that announcement, or may need a little bit more information on that. Guys, I just have one more thing, that I want to talk about. This is a fishing show, and we primarily talk about fishing here, and but I just want to get something off, something that's just kind of been on my heart today. I received word that a friend and a fellow soldier that I served with took his life a couple of days ago, and I'm not the best at this kind of stuff, but I just felt the need to just mention that we all know some people that are possibly going through some things, and he was a great guy, a little on the wild side, but an awesome dude. He'd give you the shirt off his back, and a heck of a soldier too. I mean, that dude was boots on ground, ready to go, but he was obviously dealing with some stuff that was larger than him, larger than he could deal with, and he felt that the only way out of it was to take his own life. But it saddens me when I hear about that kind of stuff, especially people that you're close to or know of. So if you yourself or if you know someone who's maybe struggling with something, man, just reach out to them, talk to them. Because the best way to the best release, and in my opinion, some of the best therapy is just to get it off your chest and talk to somebody. So, just keep him in his thoughts and your thoughts. His name was Specialist Philip Pickford, great dude. But anyways, guys, we're going to talk about some awesome stuff tonight. We're going to get Ashley on here, and we're going to do a lot of fishing talking. So I'm going to bring him in here.
You hear me all right, Justin?
I can. I can't see you, though. Hold on. Oh. There we go. Had it on solo for myself. What's up, dude?
Man, I don't know it. Thanks for having me on, though.
Man, heck yeah.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, well, you and I, we talk quite a bit on the phone, just talking fishing. And, we always have some really juicy convos. So, I feel like it's, not a bad idea to just get on here and just talk about some stuff like we normally do. We are going to talk a little bit about some pre-spawn and spawn type material. And we got some baits, I think you've got 3 that you've picked out. I've got 3 myself. And we're going to talk about those baits and just kind of, just mill around, man, so yeah. I see you got that big swim bait up there behind you. You've always got that thing tied on.
Oh, yeah. I guess I may have should have taken those down because they're rigged up for beach, so I don't know.
I think anybody fishing that tournament knows you well enough to know what you're probably going to have tied on, at least one of your rods.
Right, right. But no, yeah, no, I love this idea just to kind of spitball stuff back and forth, ideas, things that happen this time of year with the fish movement and
Yeah,
different things that work with us, and maybe it'll help somebody else out. So,
absolutely. Two heads are always better than one.
yeah, yeah.
Caleb Tosh, what's up, man? I see you guys in the comments. Appreciate it. You all tuning in tonight. But yeah, man, it's that time of year, dude. It's still light outside a little bit right now. It's starting to go down, but the days are longer. The water's warming up, and the fish are moving up too. And there's a lot of different variances depending on the body of water that you're fishing and all that kind of stuff. But we're going to talk about all that. We're going to talk about a little bit of Pickwick. We're going to talk about some beach lake, some Gibson type stuff. And then your big bodies of water. So have you been on the water here lately at all? Have you had the chance?
The last time I was on a lake, so to speak, was or a tournament was Pickwick, our season opener, and we all know how that was. It was raining sideways and
Yeah.
blowing pretty good, and 34, 35 degrees most of the day. And boy, that was tough with the water coming up. I really thought that there would be a good enough population of fish that we're going to push shallow.
Yeah.
And I did. I mean, I found a couple. I did catch one really good fish. Missed another one, but yeah. I mean, they're once, and and I'm glad you said that at the beginning. Was the length of day? Even though these temperatures, they're going to fluctuate up and down over the next 6-8 weeks, and
Yeah.
When that length of day gets right, once those big fish get to that point where they're committing, a 20-degree temperature drop can change their mood, but not their placement as much, I don't think. So,
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, that was a challenge. But I actually fished Shelby Farms last week. I got out on that big lake up front on Walnut Grove, Hyde Lake, and pedaled around there for a little bit, and they were definitely ready to do their thing. They had fed up, and it's go time for them. So, yeah, we're seeing it. I love it. This is my favorite time of year.
I know, and it gets you in the mood, man. The first couple of months, just about every tournament organization starts their tournaments in February, and so it's those are the grind days. You got to get through that before you can get to the good stuff. So we are entering the good stuff. We saw our buddy Russell. He hammered them on Lake X.
Right. He still hasn't. Everybody's like hinting, where were you? Where were you?
Yeah,
He hasn't said yet. I have a feeling, I think he was out at Herb Parsons.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure he was at Herb.
Yeah.
I mean, he's retired now, so he's not going to travel too far. So
Mm-hmm.
but no,
but
man,
that's what these kind of days, this time of year provides. Is you can go out and you can really struggle to get a bite, but boy, if you catch it at the right time, 5-20 inch or 20 plus inch fish is not uncommon.
Yep, definitely.
So.
Yeah, I talked to him a little bit, and let's just let's set the stage for people that don't know. I mean, Herb Parsons is a relatively small lake. I mean, it's going to warm up a lot quicker. There's not as large of creek arms or anything like that for fish to travel to get to the back. But he mentioned they were in close to that back portion of the creek arms and stuff. So I mean, like you said, like when the days get longer and those fish move up there, a little bit of temperature change, stuff like that. They're not going to go back out to the main lake and get in brush piles in 20 feet of water. Especially on a lake like Herb Parsons, where it's pretty much there's not very much vertical structure there to begin with. But that's the beauty of this conversation, because everything is different. Every lake is different. And you got to treat it as such, because there are some like a Highland Reservoir, those fish will absolutely, with the 20-degree drop, they will drop off into a lot deeper water because it's right there. They can get to it relatively quick. And I kind of saw that a little bit on Center Hill. At least seemed to be the deal. I mean, that's a deeper, clear reservoir, and I mean, I'm sitting a foot off the bank and I'm in 15 feet of water, so the travel distance is not very far. But let's talk a little bit about, kind of your ideas, your thoughts, on the transition, because I feel like that's kind of what we're getting into, is that, that going in from pre-spawn, we're kind of in that late pre-spawn stage. Would you agree?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think, like you said, on the body, depends on the size of the body of water. And with a place like, let's say, Pickwick, for example, you've got so many offshore areas where these fish hang during the winter. That exodus, or that transition, that movement up shallow, some will leave, some will stay, some will come later. So I think, on a lake that size, you're going to see that pre-spawn bite for a much larger window. And then when you look at a lake like we have coming up this weekend, Beach, I think that window really shrinks on a lake like that.
Yeah.
I think a lot of those fish are going to, be on bed relatively around the same time. Now, and it's always been my belief, at least from experience, in my catches and what I've seen, is the largest fish get the best spots and they get them first.
Yeah.
You're not going to see, in that, once you catch some post spawners, you're not going to see, those 8 or 9 or 10 pound fish getting ready to do their thing. They're done.
Yeah.
It's really that, what's the word I'm looking for? I mean, it's that wolf pack leader. I mean, they are that alpha fish, and they're going to get the best spot and be there first.
I wonder if I've thought this myself, I wonder if it has anything to do with just their size, just being heavy. It takes a lot more energy for them to stay suspended, moving around and all that kind of stuff. And so I wonder if it's just kind of like, a part of it is because they're so big, their bellies get so full, or, they just get so full of eggs and everything, that they're heavy and they're ready to get up there. They're ready to be done with it. Like, get me back out in the deep water so I can feed up on some gizzards.
That's right.
So let's get this over with. That's a thought, that's always crossed my mind.
Yeah. I mean, I can see that playing a role, but I think it ultimately comes down to their experience and knowing what works best for them to have a successful spawn.
Right. That's a good point. I mean, they're fish that big, they've been doing it, they're seasoned enough at this point to know, or have that, that smarts about them to know what works for them, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, I'm glad you mentioned the part about, how some of these smaller bodies of water, they're all gonna be up on beds, pretty much the same time. So just for example, Russell, smash them like that. Those fish they're there. I mean, they're getting ready to go up. I'm sure after this little weather, of course, that's going to hold them back a little bit. But of course, we had that full moon just here recently. That probably pushed some fish up. I've personally seen some big fish up in like dirt, shallow water out there at Herb as well. So, but it tends. I think that to your point, some of us going, fishing some of these smaller bodies of water and then going and fishing a lake like Pickwick, it can kind of throw you off because, you're kind of in that same mindset of like, man, I was just whacking them, on, Lake X, that's, 600 acres. And then you go out, to a massive reservoir and it's totally different. So, I want to get your thoughts, let's just take Pickwick Lake, for example. That's just one of our home lakes here. Water levels. What's your thought on that? Do you think that plays the biggest role with fish in a river system like that, or do you think that the water temp is a bigger deal?
Gosh, both. If I can say both, I mean,
yeah, you can say whatever you want.
Yeah, both, because, and again, I'll mention that length of day too, because that, in a lake like that, water level and water temp, and like I said, there are going to be, a school of fish here that are pre-spawn, a school of fish here that are moved up shallow, and then, in April at some point, you're going to have, post spawners coming off. And of course, that water coming up is going to change their spawning ground dramatically, and that can ruin spawns, quite frankly. If it comes up at the wrong time. I don't think that's happened this year with that high water we had, 3, 4, 5 weeks ago.
Yeah.
That's not going to affect the spawn. It was too early. But if something like that were to happen in the next 2 to 3 weeks, where it comes up to 418 again, 419, way above summer pool where these fish are used to spawning, they're going to have to make do. They may not find, and these fish are already in that transition to go to that area.
Right.
At that point, they're going to have to bail to find the right bottom contour or bottom makeup a lot of times. So it can completely destroy a spawn. But if I had to say, with the way I fish, I'd say the water level more than anything. I like the water to come up a little bit, or to be not real high, but high enough to where that water's dirty.
Right.
I can get up shallow. I can make some casts where other fishermen are overlooking, and I can get in those areas, that are tougher to get to, tougher to reach.
Yeah, I agree. It's all relevant for the particular body of water, but I think I'm with you on the Tennessee River. I think that the water level, plays the biggest role. I think they're conditioned to that. Now. Mm-hmm. I like to compare bass behavior and use a lot of like human analogies and stuff like that, just with, how we are about things, and, how fish can kind of be the same way. On the Tennessee River and stuff like that, there's just, if you look at it, when the water levels drop down like that, there's just not a lot in the water for them to get up in. I don't know. That's always the big question mark is, what does the bass think? And, honestly, they're not, they can't analyze stuff like that. So it's funny how we try to analyze it a lot and try to determine what are those triggers. Chuck Smith asked a great question. Does time of year, water temp, or their biological trigger cause that spawn to happen? It's just, it's weird, because I think that, like you said, every bass is different, because they're not all spawning at the same time. You've got pre-spawners, you got spawners, and you've got some that have probably already spawned, and then you got some fish that spawn out on the main river and stuff like that as well. I think that's kind of a sleeper pattern not too many people talk about. But if you think about it, there's a lot of areas out there that they could use, like, eddies and stuff like that. The smallmouth are doing it for sure. And I wouldn't doubt that the largemouth are definitely doing that. But yeah, I think water level as well plays a big role. But that water temp, that can change a lot of things also. But when we think about, the water levels coming up, stuff like that, a lot of times we as anglers, we think about, the fish are getting in the bushes and stuff like that. What is your experience on the type of cover that most of your fish like to spawn around? We've heard the term hard bottom and all that kind of stuff, but do you look for cover first, or do you look for just that straight open hard bottom? Or what do you look for? I don't want to say it's either one or the other.
If I'm looking for pre-spawners, the bottom is not as important, because they're still, maybe they haven't selected their bedding area yet with the pre-spawner. And that's, if there's pre-spawn fish in a lake, that's what I'm going to look for. If I see in most of the lakes we fish, as far as a spawning fish, the water clarity isn't very good. So that opportunity doesn't present itself too often. But I would say, yeah, absolutely. I'm looking for cover when that water gets up. They can adjust and tweak where they want to be within 10, 20, 30 yards. Now, if it's an old, silted in area and the cover looks great, then no, I'll skip right by it. And how do you tell those things? It can be tough, especially if it's high and muddy and you don't have experience on the lake. It's really just making a lot of casts and kind of getting a feel for what the bottom's doing. But yeah, I'm searching for cover first. I don't care if it's a bush, a dock, rocks, lay downs. I like making a million casts to try to figure out where they're at.
Yeah.
More than anything, because in this spawn, I mean, you're going to have at beach, say for instance, you could, be back in a creek, and you need to try to locate these fish, and like you may end up finding out that in a back of a pocket, they're going to be on the second little secondary point. They've made it back that far, right?
Right.
And there's 2 or 3 stacked around that area, so it can be. I'm searching more than anything, but cover would be my first thing I look for, and spots that a lot of other anglers just pass up.
Yeah. So I think that fishing out of a kayak already kind of presents some challenges when it comes to fishing for bedding fish, especially when you have a little bit of wind and stuff like that. And, I know that you are a big power fisherman, you like to cover a lot of water. So, I mean, do you even, are you even concerned with bedding fish at all? Or do you just kind of focus primarily, pre-spawn and during the spawn, do you just kind of focus on those fish that are coming and going?
I'd say the ones that are coming is really what I'm looking at the next 4 weeks.
Oh yeah, sure. Well, I guess what I meant is like, as it pertains to like cover that you're fishing, because a lot of times the fish are going to use the same type of cover and structure that they, came in on as they go out on.
Yeah. No, if I see a spawner, if the water clarity is right, I'll spend time, trying to get them to eat. It's, I will not spend more than 15, 30 minutes. It's hard to look at a 7, 8, 9 pound fish and pedal off, but you can tell how agitated they get when they're on bed with their fin movement, are they circling the bait? Are they leaving and taking forever to come back? Things like that are telltale signs of, that you're not going to catch that fish.
Right.
But, if you can tell they get agitated pretty quick, then you could probably catch them. But no, I mean, I love to just put the pedals on high and make as many casts as I can. But I also I'll tell you, to other people listening or watching this, take the time to make casts that are really where you have to set your kayak up to make that cast. In other words, if you're paralleling a shoreline, great cover, you've caught a fish, say off a stump, and you see a stump sitting back behind a bush with an overhang that you cannot cast to from that angle. Come back around the backside if you can, even if you've got to go, work to get to that spot to make that cast. You'll be surprised at the rewards you'll get for an effort like that. A lot of people just zip by areas like that.
Yeah.
And that can make the difference between catching 45 inches or catching 58 inches.
Yeah.
With 3 fish.
Dude, that's a really good point. It's quality, over quantity. Yeah, I've been guilty of myself, before that, you just kind of get in a rush. You see something, you see a target, you may not be in the most optimal angle for it, but you make a pitch anyways, because maybe you're already thinking about what's ahead of it or something like that. Or, maybe even make the assumption, well, there's probably nothing there, I'm just going to throw at it anyways. But I definitely like that, man. That's, and that kind of goes back down to, to your mechanics and stuff, and spending a lot of time working on your casting and stuff like that, because it's important. I mean, it's just like in baseball, you're not going to be able to hit home runs if you don't work on your swing, outside of game day. You've got to put in that time. So, just kind of get in the backyard or go into the local pond or something, can definitely, pay dividends, when it comes to that. But
yeah, get out on the water and make a bunch of casts, huh?
Yeah. So, when it comes to spawning, a lot of what you hear is the fish are moving the back of the pockets and all this kind of stuff. And I'm just speaking verbatim, what you hear a lot of, in the, from the pros, the media and everything else. When you read a book, about fishing, spawning, the terminology is always the same. But you don't really get, a lot of people don't put a whole lot of emphasis on, I guess real better terminology, to explain fish movement and fish behavior and all that kind of stuff and where they go. There may be some of that out there. You probably know some really good YouTube channels or something. But, when you think a lot about fish moving to the backs of pockets, I think what a lot of people, probably lean towards first is, the massive pocket and the massive flat in the very back. But I want to get your opinion on this, because I have found that I think a lot of times those bigger fish, those real big fish, they live out there in that deep water, off those main lake points and stuff like that. And oftentimes, this is just my theory, they're not going to travel to the very back. They're going to go right up. And I'm talking about like a big reservoir, like Kentucky Lake, Pickwick, stuff like that. They're going to come off that main lake, and they're going to go up in those first little feeder pockets, those first little finger coves and stuff like that, right inside the mouth. They don't have to go very far. They can get up under a dock or something like that. But it just, my question is, do you tend to think the same way that some of the bigger quality, bigger bass are going to be kind of going into those pockets closer to the mouth of the coves? Or do you go straight for the back? And because I do think that you get a lot more bites. There's a lot more fish in the very back. Like let's say the back of Yellow Creek or something like that. But what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, it's the truth. There's always exceptions. I think that you can find, in the back of a creek at Browns or Pickwick, I don't care. I mean, you can find a large fish, but a lot of times you'll see it. Let's just say the best fish are going to pick the best spots. Is the best spot going to be in the very back of a pocket where they've had to travel 150 yards or 200 yards down a 4-foot ditch, right? Is there bait there? Are there herons all over the place back in the back?
Yeah.
They'll avoid those areas during the spawn. But I would say the money spots for me, no matter how big the pocket, in my experience, would be about halfway back at the most is where you're going to see some of the bigger fish in those prime spots. Now, it's got to be the right bottom. You want a hard bottom. You've got to have good the cover and the protection for them. There needs to be, the water needs to be highly oxygenated. You need to have good flow if you're on a river system with current, at least getting into that area, and food. Even though they're spawning, I mean, they still want to be able to drop back out fairly easy, like you said.
Yeah,
they're exhausted. They're tired. It whips them. I don't know if you've really thought it or paid attention. When you catch a post spawner, sometimes they have some life, but it's like catching a fish in winter. They're just like,
they just kind of drag to the boat,
Yeah, it's like hooking a crappie on a spinnerbait. They just kind of roll over and you reel them in.
Yeah,
they're wore out. So yeah, having that easy access to deep water and that area where they can recover, absolutely, 100%. No, I agree with that.
Yeah, I mean, is Mama going to go have her baby out in the middle of the desert, or is she going to have it right next to Kroger? So, exactly.
Right.
But no, I mean, I agree. I mean, I think that those bigger fish, like you mentioned, I mean, they're the big kids on the block. They can come into an area. If they like it, they can push out another fish. Yeah, hey, this is my bed. If it's comfortable and convenient. Mark Davis made a good point. I think it also has a lot to do with if they are resident fish or schoolers. Really good point. So bass that is following around in a school the majority of their life, that's going to dictate where they're going to spawn. It could be anywhere, and then of course resident fish, they're going to find they're already residents of that area, so they're going to find that they're already going to know. I mean, they not logically, but they know where they want to go. But good stuff, man. So let's. I want to talk about some baits. Everybody likes talking about some lures and stuff, and we got some more juice stuff we'll talk about too. You've got 3, I've got 3. You may have more than 3. That's fine. But I want to start off right now. Like right now, we're kind of still in that transit. We are still in that transition. You guys are going to Beach Lake. You guys very well may see some bass that are up shallow. I mean, maybe getting on beds or getting ready to get on beds. But you're probably going to have a lot of fish still in transition, still kind of in that late pre-spawn mode. So, number one bait, water temps, I'm going to say probably in between 55 to 62 degrees, something like that right now. What's your first go-to bait?
Spinnerbait. Every time. Every time.
That's why I didn't add that in my 3, because I knew you were going to say it.
Every time. And no, I didn't even think about what you would select. Selfishly, I didn't even think about it. But
No, that's okay.
Yeah, once water temps hit, I mean, gosh, I'll throw them even when they're below 50. But once they get above 50 in the spring, I don't have to have wind. I don't have to have current. I'm going to throw a spinnerbait a lot. It'll catch it'll catch the giants, but it'll give you an idea where the smaller fish are too. Yeah, I mean, just a double willow leaf. I pulled this one out. I don't know if y'all can see it, but I love using colored blades this time of year, and these have a little bit of nickel black to them. Anyway, that's my go-to spinnerbait.
Do you pick up colored blades, clear water, dirty water, regardless?
Something with a little bit different blade, like. So this one, I mean, it looks like it's black, but it's more nickel.
Yeah.
And I just have a ton of confidence in these, just from experience. So you can catch them with the silver, gold, but I love black and white blades, that nickel finish to them. This time of year, I'm fishing them relatively fast. So yeah, this in just a half ounce, just to keep it down, so I can reel it a little bit faster. And just to give them a really good target to see. I think that black, like if I'm throwing black blades, I'll put a white trailer on, or if I'm throwing white blades, I'll put a black trailer on, just to give them that contrast. I think they see it better, they eat it better. And then it gets so dirty sometimes it doesn't matter. Then you'll move to, something like a big Colorado blade. Now this is what, I was fishing at Pickwick in the very, very back of Yellow Creek, when you've got, 2 inches of visibility, if that, in that big fish I caught. I mean, let's be honest, it had no idea what it was eating.
Oh,
it couldn't see it.
Yeah.
But felt that thump just coming right by him, and it lashed out, and she ate it. It was in the very back of her mouth. So yeah, I mean, I think that color is probably more of a confidence thing. Honestly, I don't know if that really plays a role in it, or if they're not used to seeing it as much. But yeah, throwing a spinnerbait around, just seeing where the fish are.
Yeah,
that's my go-to.
I like that, man. I always like. I mean, I think color and stuff like that does matter at times, but I definitely buy into the fact that I don't think that color matters so much to the fish. I think it matters more for the water clarity. But dude, if a bass is hungry, if it swims by their head, because in my thought, if you could have ran a swim jig right by that fish, if you had known it was there, with a good boot tail on or something like that, it may have still bit that too. But I was watching a YouTube video earlier. The guy was saying he was saying the exact same thing, like and I don't go out looking for videos that disagree with my theories. I just happen to see it. But, he was like, man, I think that a lot of people get caught up in, the type of soft plastic, that they're pitching and flipping or something like that. I don't think that it really matters. Is a D-bomb much different from a sweet beaver? Sure, there's going to be some people that may experience throwing a D-bomb and then throwing a sweet beaver, and they start catching fish when they change. But I think most of the time it doesn't matter. If you put that fish in front of that fish's face, that bait in front of that fish's face, if they're hungry, they're going to eat it.
Right. And sometimes it can be just the selection, like a square bill in that situation. Would that fish eat that square bill? Yes, but it wasn't the right bait. As I was fishing, the approach I was taking, making multiple casts and deep, thick stuff, that wouldn't have been the best bait to be throwing. Whereas a swim jig would have come through just as well as a spinnerbait, if not better. So, I think people get hung up on that too, a little bit more. It can be just about the way you're fishing, or the style where those fish are. The bait that you choose can be just as far more important than the color of it. Sure.
Definitely. I think they're all tools that, they all work, better in different situations. I don't think it's so much that, the bass were, they were wanting the chatterbait over the swim jig. Maybe or the swim jig over the chatterbait. Maybe the swim jig was just coming through that cover better. Maybe you're able to make, better presentations with the swim jig or something. And that's probably not, the best example is like what you said, like a square bill versus a spinnerbait. Square bill is not going to come through that cover very good at all.
Right.
But yeah, I like it, man. AJ.
So
Hansen,
what's yours? Tell us what yours is.
Well, one final thing. AJ Hansen asked, do you you mentioned that you run trailers. Do you run a trailer hook at all?
On my spinnerbaits, never. Now I will if, say, I'm frustrated and they've gotten in my head and I've lost a few big fish, I might. But on a spinnerbait, I never will. I'm throwing it in places that, quite frankly, I mean, you just don't want one on. It's just that you're going to hang it up too much. You hang it up enough with the single jig hook on it.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
All right, so my first is no secret, but a Lipples Crane bait.
Yes, sir.
And just a couple of different styles. I would say when I really like the BB style rattle when it's kind of overcast or a little bit dirtier situations, but particularly overcast. That's when I kind of like a white something with a little bit of chartreuse in there, a little green back. This is a Yozuri 3DB, I think it is. And but shad pattern, I mean, a lot of people like reds and stuff like that. Dude, I have thrown a ton of reds and I still throw it. I mean, I catch them every once in a while, but I've literally went from throwing red to throwing just a shad pattern, like on Gibson, stuff like that, and went from not catching them to just completely whacking them. So I know the red is a really big deal. I'm not disregarding it, but for me, I've had a lot more success on shad patterns this time of year. But when the sun's out and it's a little bit more calmer, that's when I kind of like I like that tungsten 2-tap. This is just a Booyah 1-knocker or hard knocker, I believe, and it just has that more subtle thump to it. It's not as loud and obtrusive. And then something about that gold. I'm gonna tell you guys right now, something about a little bit of gold flash on a Lipples Crane bait. They just cannot stand it. But that's that's a big go-to for me right now because this is when a lot of fish are still there. A lot of fish, unless the water is up, and really, it kind of takes the water coming up and staying up, and then with a little bit of warmer weather along with it. I think that on Pickwick, you probably would have completely whacked them if we had a little bit of warmer water temperatures, fishing the way that you're fishing. It's big spinnerbait up in the bushes. But this time of year, we as anglers, we see the water in the bushes and man, we want to get up there, but there's still a lot of fish out there, suspended, hanging out off those drops and stuff like that. And I mean, and it doesn't have, I'm not saying deep water either, but it can be, they can be in 3 feet of water, 4 feet of water. It's just, kind of relevant to the lake that you're on. But I've seen the water come up overnight and, on Pickwick, and they're in the back of, one of the big pockets in 2 feet of water, and just some little depression. They moved up with it. And they were kind of just right there, but, they were up there, but they weren't on anything. They were just kind of out there on that flat on some kind of little depression. So that Lipples Crane bait, man, it's a great bait for covering water. It gets a lot of bites. It gets big bites, and when they're on it, man, you know how it is, dude. They eat it. They just thump it and just take off. I love it.
They do, and that's one I picked. So I'm not even going to necessarily show mine, but I like your take on the one knock and slightly more calmer conditions, not quite as overcast, sunny. I like that. I will say something about the red. Listen, I will tell you, I really think, I know it works in the spawn, but I think, especially in the Southeast, I think the reason red is such a big deal is the water clarity. In the spring is generally dirty. Yeah. It's off color. I think that red, those, even like fire tigers, bright chartreuses, I think they work because they can see them.
Yeah.
Uh,
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, I know that kind of sounds dumbing it down, but I really think those reds are so effective because you can turn around those conditions in the middle of summer. If you get a huge rain and a flood and the water temp's 80 degrees and the fish are pushed shallow, you can throw a wet red square bill and absolutely thump them on it.
Mm-hmm.
That has nothing to do with the spawn, nothing to do with the spring. So yeah, the red thing, not a myth. It does work in the spring, but I think it's tied to watercolor more than anything, just in my mind.
No,
But
I'm
what I
glad
love
you
to do
said
with
that.
and what I love to do with the lipless is fishing them. Like you said, I love burning them across flats. If you're in the back of a pocket or halfway back, and a ditch runs down through there, just hitting the sides of that, fishing the color lines with it. You can see those color lines. I don't use a graph, but you can, current will show you where seams are. The color of the water will show you where it is. Those little subtle drops, and just burning them across there. And then off points, those secondary points or even a main point. I like positioning shallow, casting out deep, and just hopping it up that edge.
Yeah.
And bringing it back to me shallow. I just like giving them that different look. I know, most presentations, these bass are conditioned to seeing a bait come to the bank and back out.
Yeah.
So I'll get up, right up on the shoreline and fish it, from deep to shallow and bring it back up and just hopping it off bottom, almost like you would snatch a jig, just kind of hop it and let it fall on slack line.
Yeah.
Try that a little bit this spring and that works.
Yeah. What I don't know if you throw a chatterbait a lot. I mean, the chatterbait is real popular with a lot of guys or a lot of anglers. Are you picking a chatterbait over a lipless, or does it kind of depend on the water conditions, water clarity, and that kind of stuff? Or are you a chatterbait fisherman at all?
Yeah, I went through a phase with them, but I just love a spinnerbait so much. A lot of those same applications. I don't fish a ton of grass lakes where that chatterbait seems to excel. It's just a better choice sometimes than a spinnerbait in those areas. But I would rather fish a spinnerbait in a lot of those areas. These guys are fishing chatterbaits.
Yeah. Does that boil down to confidence for you, or just do you feel like you're throwing something different than everybody else?
Probably more with confidence and preference.
Yeah. I
just really love throwing a spinnerbait, and if I'm going to be out there doing what I love to do, I'm going to enjoy it. Yeah. You're not going to catch me, in 20 foot of water, slow rolling a chatterbait on a ledge at Pickwick. Yeah. You're just not,
I'm with you. I've got a ton of chatterbaits. I don't throw them all the time. I mean, it's real conditional for me. I mean, usually I throw them quite a bit, or I throw them more so in the springtime than I will any other time of the year. But I feel like, and I'm not dogging it. It's an excellent bait. You can't argue that it catches fish or wins tournaments. Point blank. Period. How can you argue with that? But it is one of those baits that it feels good to the angler because they can feel that vibration. It's thumping. You're getting that immediate satisfaction return that I'm doing something. I feel like I'm throwing a bait that's making it's making a difference in my chances of getting bit or not getting bit. But you get the same thing with the spinnerbait. You get that not as especially with with Willow leaf, you don't feel it as much. But yeah, I'm not crazy about the chatterbait because it has its flaws. It isn't. We'll get into that in a second with our next choice. So next choice up, you mentioned the lipless. So that was your second. My second's going to be a square bill. And you mentioned it already, that Fire Tiger, that Chartreuse Black Back, something like that. I mean, I'd like to get some of those. I've been meaning to pick up some of those Hard Knocker, the new Strike King Hard Knocker with the tungsten rattle in it, because I feel like, in that really dirty water that may, give just a little bit more, but I really love that bait, when like right now when the water levels come up real crazy on Pickwick, or something like that, when those fish are, they're already in that transition. They're getting up into those pockets and stuff like that, but they're not quite to the very back of them yet. And when that water level comes up, just my experience, I feel like a lot more fish sit kind of on the outside edges of those of that brush and stuff like that, but it's a great bait, to fish around, lay downs, rock, and of course, if you got dirty water, that it can be killer. And I'll just add, and this kind of goes along with the Lipples Crane bait. If you got some dirty water, I can't emphasize enough how important it is to make numerous casts at the same targets, from different angles. If you're fishing a flat, I've been on a point before throwing, in chocolate milk water, dude, throwing a Lipples Crane bait. And, it may sound crazy, it may be one of those places that a spinnerbait, big Colorado blade spinnerbait may have worked better, but man, changing up the angle, and just making numerous casts, you're eventually going to run into, to some fish, and especially, I know you don't use a graph, but a lot of times what I use a graph for is just to see if there's life in the area. So if I pull up into a point and there's bait everywhere, there's bigger arches, there's smaller arches, then that gives me the confidence to know that I'm on fish, I'm around fish. I just need to make the right adjustment, to get bit. So I think I was watching a 2017 FLW tournament on Gunnersville, where Shin Fukai, he was saying, change up the sound, change up the angle, And of course, it was an edited clip. The next thing was he was catching a 5-pounder. But man, it really, really works. Covering water is really important at times. But I think at this time of year, man, sometimes just power pulling down or just sitting in one spot and just making fan casting an area from different angles can pay dividends.
Yeah, for certain. And that multiple cast thing to the same spot, if it's a perfect angle, if you've got a bush set up that comes out a little further with a lay down, set up to where that bass can sit in the bush, and it just those perfect spots, especially when it's dirty. And when you're talking 6 inches, 8 inches of visibility or less, when it's gotten chocolate milk dirty, make a bunch of casts to it. I've gotten a lot of bites doing that. Most people just make that one cast and blow by it. Sometimes it takes 4 or 5, but boy, and you'll be surprised. You think they just hit it really light. They're just like, all right, I'm going to hit this. What is this? They're just setting up for it. They're like, okay, if that comes by again.
Yeah. That's interesting you said that, man. That's a really good point. Something I haven't really thought about it. You run a spinnerbait by a bush, that bass may have been tucked up in there, especially if the wind's blowing up against it. That fish may have been tucked on the backside of that bush. And, then you run that big spinnerbait by there, it may have drawn him out. And then, that second cast may get the job done.
Yeah, and they can be territorial too. They get agitated this time of year, much more so than other times of year. I think that hey, that they're just going to strike it out of aggression sometimes, which I'll take. I don't care why they hit it.
Oh yeah. Well, we will never know as long as you get them in the boat. That's all that counts.
That's right.
Yeah. So all right, let's move on to third bait. What's your third pick?
Third bait is, how can you not say it? Buzzbait.
Yeah.
Buzzbait.
No, Ashley, there's some secrets you gotta keep to yourself, man.
I know, but
I'm just kidding.
I don't care. I don't care if the water temps are 90 or 45. A buzzbait is one of the best baits out there. It's like the spinnerbait. It's timeless. I don't see it. It's not going away. No. You can reel them fast, you can reel them slow, you can have 2-blade, 3-blade, 4-blade, plastic props, metal props, squeaky, clackers. They run the gamut. I just like a good old fashioned squeaky 2-blade most of the time. But my word, it's just I won't fish a buzzbait when I'm pre-fishing, just because it catches such big fish.
Yeah.
Especially this time of year, I won't throw it. You're going to stick that 1 fish or 2 fish that you want the next day. Yeah. But I'll tell you, a story. I had a horrible experience with a buzzbait when I was about 15 or 16 years old. I hooked a bass, at that time to me was just, and to this day, still in my imagination, was the biggest fish I've ever hooked. In reality, it's probably, a 7-pound largemouth, 8-pound largemouth. It was a big fish. And I hooked it on an old Strike King 3-prop. I forget what they called those things. But anyway, Buzz King, I think. And I did not have a trailer hook on it. And I had seen pros tell me, hey, put a trailer hook on, put a trailer hook on. I do not throw a buzzbait. I will take it off sometimes if I'm fishing, grassy areas with there's a lot of leaf litter, things like that on the water.
Right.
I'll take it off. But I put on a little, you see how small that trailer is?
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of, and this is just a little gem. I don't know if most people do this or if I figured something out, but I always put the, like that tubing on, or a keeper. You can use whatever you want, but I put the hook on first and then just push that keeper down. So this trailer is just free.
Yeah.
It just spins around. So that little dude, I like it light wire. I want it sticky sharp. So if it touches the side of that fish's face when she jumps or changes direction, once she's been hooked, that it'll stick them. But that's a good little tidbit. I've landed a lot of fish because of that trailer securing that bait in that fish's face. And make sure you're rigging it to where it swings. A lot of people will put that surgical tubing around the eye of the trailer hook and then just smash it down there, and it won't wiggle around as much. It's pretty stiff.
Yeah.
Anyway.
No, that's a good tip. If you think about it, like somebody jacking a fish with a jig, it rips a gaping hole in their mouth. And with a buzzbait, they bite that thing so aggressively. I could see the same thing happening. They're ripping a hole, gashing a hole in their own mouth because they're so aggressive with it. So I like that. I'm not big. I just I haven't really gotten into the trailer hook thing. Not because I'm probably just more lazy about it, but than anything. But no, I definitely recommend that. It's
yeah.
It's just,
and use something small. That's what I've had the most luck with the larger ones. The really big, like 3 or 4 or 5/0 trailer hooks are just, they'll get hung up more. They can affect the way a buzzbait runs sometimes if it's not a really bigger or larger size buzzbait. But that little sticky thin wire hook, it's going to get the job done. It's going to do what you want it to do.
Yeah. So
sure.
with the buzzbait, you being someone that doesn't have a graph on his boat, so obviously you don't know the water temperature. Or do you have anything that you use to gauge the water temperature? Any kind of like tool or anything?
That right there.
Your hands, your fingers.
Literally, I know that sounds so like old man or like redneck. I feel the water. I've always done that since I was a kid, and that's just what I've always gauged it by.
Yeah.
And honestly, I could within 3 or 4 degrees, I could tell you what beach is right now just by the air temperature and the rainfall that we've had. The rainfall today was 55 degrees. That surface temp is probably 55, 56, 57 out there right now.
Yeah.
So. And just when I'll throw a buzzbait, I don't care what the water temp is really. Now the dead of winter, I may, I'm not going to do it when the water temperature in the low 40s or something. But once it hits 50 or more, I'll throw one.
Hey,
to see.
I've caught some. This will entice Trent Harris if he's listening, but I've caught some fish in 41-degree water temps on a pop-ar when it was raining.
Right.
Yeah, right. I don't know what I was thinking. Why I even picked it up. I think about that sometimes. I don't know what triggered me to pick up a pop-ar. I remember what it was because anytime you have water, rain or water flowing in and stuff like that, it just brings them to the surface a little bit.
Yeah, it will.
But no, that was going to tie in. I was asking that question to tie into my next question, which you kind of answered. Well, actually, really, okay, as we progress through the pre-spawn and stuff like that, is it one of those baits that you're going to have tied on? You're going to throw it a little bit to see if you can catch one on it, or is it one of those baits you're going to put in your hand and you're going to grind it out till you get a bite on it? And I'm sure as you progress through the spawn, through the pre-spawn, that's going to change. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it's with a buzzbait. It in some conditions, it's about you have to make the cast to get the bites. So it would go in that second scenario where you said it's all or nothing, because if you don't put in 1,500 casts, then you're not going to get those 3, 4, 5, 6 bites on it.
Yeah.
That's just a tough decision, because I know I could pick up a spinnerbait and tear up bushes and probably catch some 14 to 16-inch fish. But, if you're really just, and I enjoy catching smaller fish, those 2.5 pounders, but I get real joy out of 20+ inch fish. And that's what I go after. And if I only catch 2 of them and don't win, fine.
Yeah.
I'm 100% okay with that, because I want, literally, when I go out, I want to have the kind of day that Russell had yesterday, whenever it was yesterday.
Yeah.
I want to catch 5 20-inchers and figure out a way to do it. And I think throwing a buzzbait 1,500 times is a real good way to do it this time of year.
Well, let's be real. I mean, when you're going through your phone and you're deleting old pics, the 14, 15, and 16-inch fish, they get deleted real quick. But those 20-inchers, those are memories, man. You remember those.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I can remember back to when I was a kid, man, just catching fish on a Texas rig. I could take you right to the spots right now, So it's those it's those big fish, man, that tell the stories that, those are the memories you hold on to. Good stuff, dude. I love the jerk. I love the jerk bait. I'm gonna throw out my last one, and I can't let spawn go without talking about a jig. So
that's fine.
The old standby, man. I love this jig. I really like this one a lot. It's the Black Bass Tackle Industries jig. It's got I love this. It's kind of like a ball head style jig, but it's got that concaved backing. So when it falls on the bottom, it still stands up. I mean, it still lays flat on the bottom. It doesn't roll or anything like that. Even with that little ball head style. But when those bass start moving towards the flats, they're really in full ambush on those flats. They're going to stop on those secondary points. And if you can have a secondary point that's got some docks or any kind of structural or cover change or anything like that, and we're talking about just regular water levels, normal pool and stuff like that, man, those bass will load up on those docks, those, anything that's hanging around a dock. There's all kinds of junk, logs that are laid over, stuff like that. The old dock that was there before. And that jig, man, will get you a lot of bites. It'll get big bites too. So that's going to be my third. And of course you can use that jig, even to catch them on beds and stuff like that. So, that's one I probably have a jig tied on year round, but this time of year, I definitely like it, fishing around those points and secondary points leading into those pockets. So,
yeah, you can throw a jig in, I think, all 4 seasons, depending on what body of water you're on, and preference, your style. But it's a great choice, no question.
No. Yeah, I grabbed a swim jig. That was a kind of third, fourth-ish one along too, because, as we progress, through the spawn and more people are getting on the water, everybody's throwing the spinnerbaits and the bladed jigs and the Lipples Crane baits. They start getting adjusted, to all that pressure really, really, really quick. So a swim jig, I love it on like Kentucky Lake. There's some areas out there that have some good, buck brush and stuff like that. That's out off the bank, man. That is a killer bait to just, slither through that brush that's just out off the bank, but even like when we were talking about when the water levels get up, if it's a little bit clearer water, if that spinnerbait, that chatterbait's not working, man, tie on that swim jig and just make a million casts in a day, running parallel to all that cover, and you're going to get some bites. But, man, good stuff, dude. I've enjoyed this conveation. A lot of people.
Oh yeah. I keep going. I mean, we do not have to stop. We can keep talking.
I don't mind at all, man. Well, look, do you buy into the? I guess it's, the orange, or what is it? I'm going to say it wrong. The methylonite,
Dilate.
methylite. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you buy into that? A lot of people are saying, man, because I'm surprised neither one of us has this one, but Wacky Rig is just an trophy. I mean, just an all around awesome bait for fishing beds and all that kind of stuff. But a lot of people talk about that color. Do you buy into that much?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I actually pulled them out. They're behind me. I was gonna bring them up.
Damn it.
No, and again, this is, it goes back into, I think it's just that it's a water clarity thing. It's that time of year. It can happen. You can use those colors in summer if it's high and muddy.
Yeah.
If you're in a river system or a creek that it gets just a little bit of rain, and you don't have a lot of vegetation to filter it, and it gets muddy real quick, then those colors just work well in certain water clarities to me. But yeah, I flat worn them out on certain days. Just like a fluke, a soft jerk bait.
Yeah.
Skipping it up in underneath docks, skipping it up underneath overhangs where you're not getting any other bait realistically to skip 20 yards back in there to get to it. But yeah, no, there's a time for it.
For you, I mean, a lot of people say it's not so much the color for the bass, but for the fisherman to be able to see it. I mean, because I've seen guys throw it and catch them on clear water as well. So it kind of like the whole red deal. Is there something in a bass that says that's red? I need to kill it. In this case, are the bass thinking the same thing? Is it that color that just triggers them, or I mean, I definitely agree that the water clarity plays a huge role, because Mark Daniels Jr. was throwing that color on Lake Fork last year, MLF, and I think he won the tournament, but I mean, he was killing them, just crushing them. I believe it was the same color.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I think that, when bass are hungry, when they're aggressive, when they're ticked off or whatever, you're intruding on their bed, they're going to kill anything that comes around it, or pick it up and move it. What color makes the most sense to the angler? I guess that really depends on what they have confidence in. And I guess in some situations, if they can see that bait better, a lot of guys talk about using white and stuff like that for bedding fish, because they can see it. But I don't know. I mean, you've seen, I'm sure, there's days where the white or the other colors work really good, and other days, a green pumpkin or something like that can just, can work just as good. But
oh yeah, I agree. And I think we put too much into it. I think it's more of an angler preference, angler confidence thing, and really the conditions as far as your sky conditions and your water conditions dictate that, just in my mind, more than anything.
Yeah.
And I feel like Mark Daniels could have been throwing a white colored bait, maybe solid black, a June bug, just something that really stands out in that watercolor.
Right.
And he was just in the area that he needed to be in to win the tournament. He may even been able to take a different approach with a different bait. Who knows?
Yeah. There was clearly a lot of fish in that area.
Yeah,
for sure.
It's just, just like you. I mean, you could come behind me, and I could be fishing a spinnerbait in an area and not get a bite, and you come behind me with a jig and catch 20 pounds.
Yeah.
They're there, but it's just it's the right presentation, and it wasn't so much, didn't really have much to do with color. It's just more the presentation and you got to be where the fish are, and that's the hardest thing, I think, for me when fishing so fast is, you got to be where they are to win a tournament, or just to have a successful day on the water if you're just fun fishing, right? So
yeah, for sure. Couple comments. Mark Bullock, he wants to know why no jerkbait as one of your three.
I fish a jerkbait in the fall and winter a bunch. When in the southeast, a lot of the lakes that I fish, the water color does not satisfy, or I just don't feel confident throwing a jerkbait. If I've got good visibility, I will.
Yeah.
But I just don't feel, if I've only got 12 to 16 inches of visibility, like a lot of these lakes we fish in the club this time of year. I mean, sure, you could throw some brighter colors, some of those fire tigers, reds, and I just don't spend a lot of time doing it. I guess I'd rather catch them a different way.
Yeah.
But no, they work.
Yeah.
But the dirtier the water, I think the less effective a jerkbait becomes, just in my mind.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It's definitely a more clear water presentation. I mean, here's one thing I've been, that I've thought about. Jerkbait is a bait that a lot of people are throwing during the winter, and and I know the lakes aren't as populated, but there's still quite a few anglers. I mean, fishing is really popular, nowadays, and a lot of people are out there doing it. And really, you get one good day of warm weather, and everybody and their mom and their cousins out on the lake, in the middle of February. But going into the spawn, is it a bait that these fish have become conditioned to over the past few months? And I think since what's his name, Hank Cherry. I mean, of course, the jerkbait has just been an absolute killer bait for a long time. But when it typically takes somebody really making it popular, or we're doing some big moves with it. Like Hank Cherry winning 2 back-to-back classics. With the jerkbait. Right. That's now everybody that wasn't throwing a jerkbait, goes out and gets a jerkbait. And is it one of those baits that that it's going to kind of become overpressured, overused, and these fish really get adjusted to? I don't know.
Yeah, and I think it has to do a lot with how they're fished. I was going to bring up a point to Mark's question, like Carroll County tournament we had last year. That's a clear body of water. I caught a lot of fish on the jerkbait, and I think that was a spring tournament last year there, if I'm not mistaken. It was early in the year.
Yeah.
So I'm not discounting it for a springtime bait at all. Just my style, I like to get dirt shallow and fish for them up there. But because Hank Cherry proved that a pre-spawn jerkbait bite on the right body of water, and I think the areas he was fishing they had some good clarity to them, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
decent visibility anyway.
His first win on Gunnersville, I think he was throwing like a pearl white color around the bridge line stuff. And I think the water, I mean, I watched a little bit of it. It looked a little bit dirty, but not like chocolate milk, almost kind of just like the wind had dirtied it up from blowing up against it, so it wasn't just, real dark, but he definitely had to make, come out, fish with a little bit brighter of a color to get him to bite.
Right. So so they can track it and find it, because they can hear it. Obviously they're going to feel it.
Right.
And they can hear it, but, being able to see it once they locate it is definitely important, I think.
Yeah. Mark Davis says Nico rig with a chartreuse tip, and then he likes the red dye around the spawn, and then chartreuse the rest of the year. That's an interesting comment, because I've often wondered myself, because some of these dyes, they kind of fade out real quick. So if you're throwing like a green pumpkin, this is the question for the experts, the scientists, the ones that understand how a bass's eyes work and all that kind of stuff. Just how much of a red can they see? Can they see a pale red? Or does it have to be bright, fire red for them to really differentiate? So they say they see 2 colors. They see greens and reds really well. But that's always been a thought of mine, is just how red does it have to be for them to see it, and that make a difference. But
but hey, listen to Mark. Mark catches them. So,
definitely.
There's something to it.
If Mark says that the red dye works for him, then it means something. So I want to ask you one question. We're gonna kind of tailor this down a little bit. We've been running an hour, but one question for Ashley Ault. You get on the water. What are the first things that you're looking for? What do you look for to determine what you need to be doing, or do you just get out there and start covering water?
Man, it starts before I even go. I do a lot of mental preparation in my head. I love thinking about fishing. So I'm watching weather patterns. So I've got a lot of my game plan. My gears are turning, days before I show up to a body of water to fish. But I mean, some of the main things I'll look for would be, and where I choose to go would be wind. Where's the sun coming up? Where's it setting? Water clarity. I'll look at that for, right away, the areas that I'm in. Water temp, obviously, but, and seasonally too. But, man, that's been decided in my head. And I would be glad to share my plan for beach at about 4 o'clock Saturday afternoon.
No, that's not why I was asking, but if you want to go there,
No.
you can. I won't be there. So.
But really, I guess probably seasonally is what really tips where I would lean towards to begin with, as far as condensing a big area into a smaller one, would be season. And then, once you actually show up, those smaller things like water clarity, activity, bait. Is it what I want to fish? Is it full of grass? Because if it's full of grass, I may shy away from it to go fish riprap or docks. Yeah. I'm going to pick areas that I feel the most confident in the style, the way that I want to fish. And then I let the fish show me. That's why I make a million casts and figure out, where they're going, where they're positioned, and then I tailor the rest of the day and those choices based on, what I find as I go. Gotcha. But there's so many little subtleties that I try to pay attention to. I'm a huge fan of Rick Clunn's. If I could fish with anybody, if I could spend a week fishing with somebody, it would be Rick Clunn, because he gets, some people think it's a little fruity, but he gets into that spiritual, that connection with nature side of things. And that's more me. That's more no graph, no motor, get more in tune with what I'm doing, and base my decisions on that. I would love to pick that dude's brain. Maybe I will, but, one day.
Yeah. I mean, it goes along with, just the old saying, time on the water, and being on the water consistently, being able to fish numerous days in a row, man, it just gets you in tune with things.
Oh yeah.
Unfortunately, we're neither one of us do it for a living. So, you get, I think, when you're anglers like we are, when you're not on the water every single day, you get really good at the preparation part, like you mentioned, doing the homework and all that kind of stuff. Because when you're in it, when you're fishing for a living, stuff like that, I mean, you're constantly out there. Are you looking at weather? Of course. Are you looking at stuff like that? Yeah, for sure. But you're just so in tune with what's going on, in the different phases they're in. You don't have to really put a whole heck of a lot of preparation into it. But yeah, man, I agree.
And I'll say one more thing real quick, is that's such a good point, that the time on the water, if you look at all the anglers that are the best in not just the big boat world, but really what we're speaking to, the kayak world, the Guillermos, the Russ Snyders, the Christine Fishers, the Eric Siddiquis, there's nobody that is spending more time on the water than those guys and gals.
Yeah.
Nobody. If they're not fishing for bass, they're all fishing for redfish or chasing muskie or, pond hopping. And I mean, these dudes, they're stopping at a lake next to a truck stop and getting their rods out to go try to catch, they're crazy addicted to it. And the time on the water and that experience, that's what it takes. Sure, they're talented and they have a ton of knowledge, but man, they're on the water every day.
Yeah.
Every day.
We got one more question for you, Ashley. Mark Davis, your competition, he's asking you, do you fish places you have caught fish before, or do you go looking for things specific to your plan? Great question.
Man, history has bit me so many times before. man, I've really tried to get away from fishing history. Now, there's certain areas like on Pickwick. I know there's a few spots. I know the fish are there. Will they cooperate that day? That history, again, I know that they're there. If I had a graph, I know I'd be marking them somewhere in that vicinity. But will they cooperate that day? Does it better serve me to go out and explore? And I try to explore more now here in the last couple of years than fishing any type of history or area of the lake. I just like to go out, let the fish tell me what I should be doing rather than me. And I'm going to find my strength doing it. I'm going to try to pick something that's in my wheelhouse to be successful and to catch the fish. But I'm going to get out and explore more. And again, let the fish dictate what I do.
Yeah, I like it. I think for me, excuse me, I like to pick areas that, you know, that offer me options, you know, but also set up well for the seasonal pattern and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And of course, I mean, you know, you pick a big creek arm like Yellow. I mean, there's from one end to the other, you know, can fish completely different based on the seasonal pattern. So then it's, you know, that too, breaking down, okay, I know the area I want to fish, but then now how do I break that down even further and choose that starting point? But yeah, man, I'm with you. You know, it's so hard to get over that history stuff too, because you just know, I mean, you know, and it's funny, David he always knows where he's going. He fishes a lot of history and sometimes he goes out there and he wrecks them and sometimes he doesn't. But
well, look, I mean, two of the biggest wins by the guy Lambert, who fishes, you know, in Tennessee a lot, but he fishes nationally as well. I mean, he won two huge tournaments a month apart. Same history, right?
Oh, yeah, same exact hole.
It's same exact area. At least that's, you know, the story. And I mean, it does work. It can work. But boy, you know, if you put all your eggs in that basket and they're not there, or something about the river or area has shifted,
changed,
you know, it can kill you.
Yeah,
because you have no plan B or C or D.
Yeah, I think, man, you know, Pigeon Forge, you know, those rivers like that, man, you know, they don't. I mean, yeah, they change, you know, but those, I think the area, I think what he was fishing was a current break, you know, and it just somehow remained the same, man. They stayed there for an entire month or however long it was. I think it's great.
You could probably go back there in the fall of this year, the exact same spot, and wreck them. Is what I'm thinking.
I think so too. So let's hope not. Let's hope there's no more tournaments. I hope that here.
Yeah, no more Cass State championships there for a minute.
Yeah, for sure. Well, man, a lot of good feedback. You know, from the comments and stuff like that, man. A lot of people enjoyed the conversation. I enjoyed it. Always enjoyed talking to you, no matter if it's on camera or on the phone, man. So I like this. I like to do stuff like this, just, you know, because like I said, man, you and I have had some really good combo, and this is the kind of combo that we've had. So it's awesome to be able to get on here and you know, talk in front of, you know, viewers and let other people learn just some of our thoughts, you know, because we bounce ideas off each other sometimes, and, you know, and learn together. So
yes, sir.
Chuck Smith, Mark Davis, everybody in the comments, we appreciate all of you guys tuning in tonight. Thank you all. Just real quick, you know, definitely, you know, if you haven't got into your registration for the St. Jude Classic, if you're fishing that, you know, consider getting that in. That there is the cutoff May 15th for that event. And go out and support our sponsors, Battleborn Batteries, Primary Tackle. We appreciate them for supporting this show and giving us the ability to get on here and do this. Ashley, I enjoyed it, man. It's been great.
Hey, me too.
Good luck this weekend, and we'll see you soon.
All right, thanks.
Thanks, bud. All right, guys. Well, that's going to wrap it up here for Lines In Live on Tuesday. Again, appreciate you all tuning in tonight. Enjoyed it. It's always great getting somebody else on here just to kind of talk some fishing and stuff, man. Sometimes it's a lot better than just hearing somebody's, you know, singular success story. But you guys take care, and we will see you all next time. Later.